Hey, another long day, huh? Don't worry, I've got a story for you tonight.
You know, sometimes I think there are certain stories that only make sense when they're told in the dark, in silence, almost like a whisper. When everyone's fast asleep, the city lights have faded, it's just you and the story, alone together. And right now, we're following a story just like that. Strange, mysterious, maybe even a little unsettling. Because what we're going to talk about today is an emotion many of us run from, whose name we barely want to hear: melancholy. It sounds cold, doesn't it? Heavy, gloomy, often mistaken for depression, even considered an illness. It seems like the exact opposite of that always be happy state that society imposes on us, as if it's an enemy we should banish from our lives immediately. But let me tell you a secret. Melancholy is so much more than we imagine. It's not just an emotion. It's a way of thinking, a state of being, a journey that pulls us beneath the surface into the depths of our soul, a journey we often overlook. This story is about understanding that melancholy is not just a bad thing, but rather an integral, even enriching part of the human experience. It's about discovering what it can teach us when we confront it. Perhaps by the end of this journey, our perception of melancholy will completely change. Are you ready? All right then. Let's take it slow, one step at a time, and dive into this strange, long journey. This story begins not just in today's modern world, but in lands as old as human history, in ancient Greece. Back then, there was no Freud, no science of psychology. Thinkers trying to understand the human soul took a completely different approach, viewing the body and mind as a whole. There was a man named Hippocrates, the father of medicine. He spoke of four principal fluids in the human body, or humors: blood, yellow bile, phlegm, and black bile. And that's where the word melancholy itself comes from, a combination of the Greek words melas, which means black, and choli, which means bile, black bile. According to Hippocrates, the balance or imbalance of these humors determined the person's temperament. Those with a predominance of black bile were considered to have a melancholic temperament. So what did that mean? Were they simply unhappy? Depressed? No, not exactly. Melancholic individuals were more often regarded as thoughtful, introverted, contemplative, sensitive, and deep thinkers. In fact, during some periods, this temperament was associated with genius and creativity. Even philosophers like Aristotle questioned, why are all exceptional men in philosophy, in politics, in poetry, or in the arts clearly melancholic? So back then, melancholy was not a disease, but a personality type, and sometimes even a privilege. However, as history progressed, especially during the Middle Ages, the perception of melancholy began to shift. With the rise of Christianity, sadness and sorrow became associated with a type of spiritual sluggishness or sinfulness called acedia. This led to melancholy being viewed as a burden, an illness, or even a demonic influence. People began to feel ashamed of this emotion, trying to hide it. Even in art, melancholic figures were sometimes depicted in a demonic or sinful context. But with the Renaissance and Romantic periods, this perception underwent another transformation. Artists, poets, and thinkers began to incorporate internal turmoil, sorrow, and existential questioning into their works. Dürer's engraving Melancholia I is one of the most striking examples from this era. The winged female figure in it is not merely sad, but deeply thoughtful, creative, and engaged in the pursuit of knowledge. The sorrowful spirit this time began to shine again as a source of genius and inspiration. Poets declared that beauty is in sorrow, while artists created their most poignant works under the influence of these profound emotions, because they knew that melancholy was one of the most delicate, perhaps the most intimate reflections of the human soul. So, what did we do? In our modern day, this complex, historically rich concept, we oversimplified it. We put it into one box: bad emotion, something you need to see a specialist for. As if every sadness, every question, every moment of deep thought that arises within us is a defect that needs immediate treatment. But what if we're wrong? What if we're missing something our ancestors understood for hundreds of years? What if melancholy isn't an enemy to be feared, but a wise whisper we should listen to?
In the first part, we traced Melancholy's journey through the dusty pages of history. We saw it not as a mere illness, but as a temperament, a tool for deepening, even a sign of genius. So what about now? How did this complex, ancient feeling find its place in humanity's collective consciousness? Did the greatest minds throughout the ages, by walking through the dark corridors of melancholy, perhaps arrive at secrets about human nature that we still can't fully grasp today? Now we're going to begin to understand that melancholy is not just a historical concept, but a philosophical journey that extends into the deepest layers of the human soul. The first name to accompany us on this journey is a Danish philosopher, Søren Kierkegaard. Kierkegaard, who lived in the 19th century, is considered one of the fathers of existentialism. For him, melancholy wasn't just ordinary sadness. It was more like an existential awareness, a kind of ontological melancholy, meaning an unavoidable emotion arising from existence, non-existence, freedom, and responsibility. According to Kierkegaard, at the core of human existence lies a type of solitude and anxiety born from our freedom to choose, and this anxiety often manifests as melancholy. He saw melancholy as a kind of creative despair, a driving force that pushes us into deep thought, to question ourselves and our place in the universe. In this sense, melancholy opens a door that rescues us from superficiality, from meaningless daily life, and confronts us with life's real questions. It allows us to see beneath the surface. Perhaps that's why some people are so afraid to face this emotion, because it forces us out of our comfort zone. And what about Freud, the famous psychoanalyst who delved into the depths of the unconscious, trying to unravel the secrets of our dreams? In his famous essay, Mourning and Melancholia, Freud distinguished melancholia from normal grief felt in the face of loss. In grief, the lost object, a person, a job, a dream, is clear, and the grieving process gradually dissolves the attachment to what was lost over time. But in melancholy, the situation is different. The melancholic person doesn't fully know what they've lost, or the loss has been internalized. The reason for the loss has been pushed into the unconscious. This can lead to decreased self-esteem and self-reproach in the melancholic person. However, Freud's theory also shows us that melancholy is not just a pathology. It is an outward manifestation of repressed internalized emotions, of unaddressed losses. And the fundamental goal of psychoanalysis is to bring these repressed emotions, these hidden losses in the unconscious, to the surface. So, in a way, melancholy can be our soul's way of shouting, there's something here that needs to be resolved. When we listen to it, we can make important discoveries about ourselves. Now let's talk about that inseparable, mysterious bond between melancholy and creativity. This is a bond that has profoundly influenced and inspired many of history's greatest artists, writers, and composers. Melancholy is not just a sadness. It's a filter that allows you to feel the world more acutely, more nuanced, more intensely. Just think, the speed, the noise, the constant new stimuli of modern life. Almost everything pushes us outwards, to the surface, to fast consumption. We barely have time to read books, think deeply, or just be silent. But melancholy, it catches us right at that point and forces us to stop. It invites us inward, into the dark, silent rooms of our own soul. It is in those moments that unexpected insights, creative ideas, and profound self-awareness can emerge. Schopenhauer, like philosophers, while arguing that life is inherently painful and human desires can never be fully satisfied, implicitly suggested that this pessimistic outlook also brought a kind of artistic depth, because confronting genuine pain prevents us from seeing superficial deceptions and creates a powerful motivation for artistic expression. Nietzsche, when he said, "Great suffering brings great knowledge," whispered to us that the difficult emotional processes brought by melancholy could be a path for the individual to reach a deeper understanding and creative power. Looking back at history, think of Van Gogh's paintings, full of inner turmoil, yet so bright and poignant, or Beethoven's magnificent symphonies, touching the depths of the human soul despite his deafness. Perhaps the poignant sorrow, the existential questioning in their works, was melancholy itself. The deep melancholic tones in Tchaikovsky's music seem to whisper into the most intimate corners of the human soul. It is a reflection of his personal sorrows. Edgar Allan Poe's dark poetry, Virginia Woolf's delicate novels depicting psychological breakdowns. We can see that melancholic vein in all of them. This emotion allowed them to see beyond the ordinary, to delve into the complexity of human nature, and to translate this complex emotion into unique artistic language. Melancholy, in a sense, is a window into the complex fabric of the universe and humanity. It confronts us not just with being, but with why we exist, with the pains we endure, the loneliness we feel, and the search for meaning in all this chaos. This profound confrontation, moving beyond the mundane, offers a new perspective, a new creative impulse. So, how do the demands of the modern age view this deepening? Where does the tyranny of always be happy push a powerful emotion like melancholy? In the next section, we'll focus precisely on these questions.
We have traced the footsteps of melancholy through the depths of history and philosophy. We've seen it not as an illness, but as a temperament, a tool for profound insight, even the muse of genius. So, what about now? How does the 21st century, with its constant demands for positivity and its expectation that we display every moment on social media, find a place for this complex and ancient emotion? Here, we confront one of the most insidious impositions of the modern age: toxic positivity. This concept refers to the pervasive pressure to be constantly happy and positive despite all of life's difficulties, pains, and sorrows. Slogans that seem well-intentioned, like "find the good in everything," "think positive," "attract positive," "never give up," "always smile," actually cause us to suppress the genuine emotions we feel within ourselves. This tyranny forces us to wear a mask. When we feel pain, experience disappointment, or are simply down, we feel obliged to present ourselves as fine to others, and even to ourselves. Why? Because society has coded sadness, anxiety, and melancholy as weakness. No one wants to see an unhappy face. Everyone is after bright, cheerful, dynamic personalities. This pressure is so intense that when we feel a hint of melancholy within, we feel guilty. Why can't I be happy? We ask ourselves, as if it's a personal flaw. And of course, one of the biggest stages for this positivity tyranny: social media. Those perfect vacation photos we see on Instagram, the filtered, flawless selfies on Snapchat, the endless success stories on LinkedIn. It's as if everyone's life is a movie set, everyone's face adorned with Hollywood star smiles. Everyone is happy, rich, beautiful, successful, and as we stare at those screens, we are left alone with the deep emptiness, the meaninglessness, the occasional sorrow we feel in our ordinary lives. Social media has become a kind of comparison arena. We compare our own inner reality with the ideal lives that others project outwards. This creates feelings of inadequacy, FOMO, fear of missing out, and ultimately a kind of chronic melancholy within us, because we don't feel like we belong to that perfect world. Deep down, we know this glitter is often fake, yet we find ourselves caught in this game. We suppress our true feelings because we think they won't get likes. No one likes a crying photo, right?
This pushes melancholy into a deep underground tunnel. We try to hide it like an illegal emotion. So, how do we escape this whirlpool? The answer is simple, yet difficult to implement. Making peace with melancholy. Embracing it not as an enemy, but as a friend, a guide. Mental health professionals and psychologists now agree on this. Instead of suppressing emotions, recognizing, feeling, and accepting them is the key to long-term mental well-being. Approaches like mindfulness and therapy teach us precisely this: to sit with our emotions, to observe them without judgment. Facing melancholy provides us with these benefits. Deepening and self-awareness. It forces us to pause in our fast-paced world and turn inward. It helps us better understand who we are, what we want, what saddens us, and what brings us joy. Empathy. Understanding our own sorrow allows us to better understand the pain and sorrow of others and to form deeper connections with them. It strengthens our communal bonds. Resilience. Confronting emotions makes us stronger. We learn through experience that every storm passes, that light follows darkness. This makes us more resilient to life's inevitable challenges. Authenticity. It allows us to shed masks and live our true selves. This is far healthier and more fulfilling than fake positivity. And, yes, creativity again. Because melancholy pushes us out of our comfort zone, forcing us to ask new questions, to go beyond what we know. This is an immense source for artistic expression and personal growth. That's why many of today's most beloved and influential artists use melancholy like a secret weapon. Instead of wearing that constant mask of happiness, they pour their inner sorrow, anxiety, and existential angst into their art. And in them, we find ourselves. Take Kurt Cobain and Nirvana, for instance. The grunge explosion of the 90s reflected the anger, alienation, and deep melancholy felt by a generation. Cobain's raw, frayed energy and sincerity in his songs reached millions because he gave a voice to repressed emotions. When he sang "Come As You Are," he was calling us to accept ourselves as we are, with all our anxieties and sorrows. The melancholy in his music was not a weakness, but a cry, a catharsis. Or Leonard Cohen. His deep, velvety voice and lyrics directly descend into the most sorrowful corners of your soul. His songs are built on themes of loss, love, faith, and existential solitude. A work like Hallelujah embodies both sanctity and the fragility of humanity. Cohen doesn't romanticize sorrow. He accepts it as it is and transforms it into music. Listeners don't feel alone in his songs because Cohen whispers to the melancholy within them. A more modern example, Billie Eilish. Her music exposes the anxieties, internal conflicts, and often overlooked dark emotions of youth. Breaking away from the shiny, cheerful conventions of pop music, she turns her own melancholy into an aesthetic. The whispers, the somber tones, and the profound lyrics in her songs resonate with millions of young people because she gives them the message, "You're not alone, it's okay to feel this." She is an antidote to toxic positivity. And what about Bo Burnham's Inside Special? This comedy musical, shot entirely by himself during quarantine, was in fact a melancholy cry about the modern age's mental health crisis, social media addiction, isolation, and existential despair. By hiding behind humor, Burnham displayed his inner darkness and anxiety with such honesty that everyone found themselves in him. The profound sadness in his work made us think, made us laugh, and at the same time opened our eyes. Because sometimes melancholy delivers the most powerful messages in the most unexpected ways. The destructive honesty and pain in Amy Winehouse's tracks, the deep solitude and alienation in Tom York's from Radiohead, all of them used melancholy not just as an emotion, but as a form of expression, translating the complexity and fragility of the human soul into their works. That's why the next time we feel that familiar, slightly melancholic wave within us, instead of suppressing it, we should pause and reflect. Maybe it wants to whisper something to us. Maybe it offers a pause, a turning inward. an opportunity for creation. Melancholy is not a luxury, but a necessity. It makes us deeper, more authentic, and more understanding individuals. Because it is when we accept that being human means embracing these complex, sorrowful, yet immensely rich emotions that we truly begin to live. On this journey, I hope we've seen that melancholy is not just a bad thing, but rather an integral, even enriching part of the human experience. Making peace with it means building a more authentic relationship with ourselves and with the world. Perhaps now it's time to go a little deeper.
We've peeled back the layers of history, delved into the philosophical depths, and confronted the shallow demands of our modern age. We've seen melancholy misunderstood, banished, and yet persistent, always finding its way back into the heart of human expression. But what if, beyond just acceptance, beyond just understanding, melancholy offers us something more? What if it brings us gifts, hidden in its quiet shadows, that are essential for a truly full and meaningful life? This final chapter is about those gifts. In a world obsessed with speed, instant gratification, and the relentless pursuit of outward happiness, melancholy stands as a quiet rebel. It doesn't scream for attention. It whispers. It nudges. It sometimes even demands that we pause. Think about it. When do we truly stop? When do we genuinely reflect on our lives, our choices, our existence? Often, it's not in moments of unbridled joy or feverish activity. It's when a quiet sadness settles in, when the noise of the world recedes and we are left alone with our thoughts. Melancholy, in this sense, is an invitation to slow down, to reflect, to truly feel. It's an involuntary practice of mindfulness, forcing us to be present with an emotion that the modern world constantly tells us to escape. This forced introspection, this quiet communion with our inner self, is a rare commodity in our hyper-connected, yet paradoxically, disconnected lives. Perhaps the most profound gift of melancholy lies in its power to propel us into the quest for meaning. When the superficial layers of life peel away, when the routine loses its luster, a sense of emptiness or anhedonia can set in. This is not necessarily clinical depression, but a profound form of melancholy, an emptiness that prompts a vital question. What is the meaning of all this? Viktor Frankl, the renowned psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, articulated this beautifully with his concept of logotherapy. He argued that the primary motivational force in humans is the search for meaning. When we face suffering, despair, or a deep sense of loss, all close companions of melancholy, we are precisely at the threshold of meaning making. Melancholy in this context acts as a compass, pointing us towards the true north of our values, our purpose, and what genuinely matters to us. It forces us to confront our finitude, our vulnerability, and in doing so, to reevaluate what makes life worth living. It's the silent philosopher within us, asking the ultimate questions, not to torment us, but to guide us towards a deeper, more authentic existence. And then there's the profound strength found in solitude. Melancholy often brings with it a sense of quiet solitude, a retreat from the bustling world. In our social media-driven age, solitude is often feared, equated with loneliness or isolation. But the solitude born from melancholy can be a fertile ground for growth and creativity. It's not the forced isolation of loneliness, but a chosen, often necessary withdrawal that allows for contemplation without external distractions. Many artists, writers, and thinkers throughout history have sought this solitary space, understanding its power. Emily Dickinson's reclusive life, for instance, allowed her to observe the world with an unparalleled depth and distill profound human emotions into her poetry. This quiet introspection, this deliberate removal from the noise, can lead to groundbreaking insights, original ideas, and a unique artistic voice that cannot emerge in constant external stimulation. It is in this lonely space that ideas are truly incubated, nurtured, and given the chance to blossom into something truly original. Furthermore, making peace with our own melancholy fosters a deeper sense of empathy and authentic human connection.
When we truly allow ourselves to feel our own sadness, our own moments of quiet despair, we become more attuned to the similar struggles in others. The mask of toxic positivity not only hides our own pain, but also prevents us from truly seeing the pain in others. But when we shed that mask, when we embrace our own shadows, we open ourselves up to a more genuine understanding of the human condition. We realize that everyone carries their own form of melancholy, their own quiet burdens. This shared experience, this recognition of common humanity and vulnerability, leads to more profound, compassionate, and authentic relationships. We connect not just on the surface level of shared joys, but on the deeper, more meaningful plane of shared human experience, including its inevitable sorrows. So the next time that familiar, slightly melancholic wave washes over you, remember, it's not a malfunction, it's not a weakness, it's not something to be banished or medicated away immediately. It is a powerful, ancient, and often misunderstood aspect of being human. Melancholy is a teacher, a guide, a silent architect of depth and meaning. It is the wisdom that reminds us that life is not merely about chasing endless happiness, but about embracing the full spectrum of human emotion in all its messy, beautiful, and profound complexity. Perhaps in this frantic pursuit of endless smiles, we have forgotten the profound strength that lies in stillness, the clarity that comes from tears, and the wisdom that is often born in the quiet contemplation of sorrow. Melancholy, when embraced, becomes a superpower. It allows you to see the world not just as it appears on the surface, but as it truly is, beautiful in its light and infinitely wise in its shadows. It's time to stop running. It's time to listen. It's time to let melancholy reveal its hidden gifts.